The land of fire, aka Azerbaijan, is one of the fastest growing economies of the world. This country is found on the crossroads of different former regional powers and civilizations, and it also possesses major gas and oil reserves. However, it does not come without its challenge. This region is also faced with major global power competition over hydrocarbon resources of the Caspian Sea. So to integrate itself with the global community, Azerbaijan has come up with important foreign policy priorities to guide its way. Azerbaijan is a former Soviet republic, and Ethiopia was quick to recognize its independence. Ever since then, the bilateral relationship between the two countries has been evolving. And in 2014, the embassy was opened here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which is where I am at today. Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Insights. I am Kinana Baina, and today I have come to Azerbaijan's embassy here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to sit down with the Charge d'Affaires of Azerbaijan to Ethiopia, and we will be looking into the foreign policy of Azerbaijan, the special challenge it is faced with, how it overcomes it, and of course, its relations with Ethiopia. Do stay with us. First off, I'd like to start by thanking you very much for availing yourself and giving us the time for this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming to our embassy. I'm privileged to host you in our embassy. Thank you.
Let's go right ahead now. And now, since Azerbaijan gained its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, I believe the international relations realm has undergone dramatic changes. But it's also said that, the foreign policy has largely stayed the same, with the focuses being on restoration of territorial integrity, strengthening the country's independence, and the development of strong regional economic partnerships, etc. So before I say much on that, actually, I'd like you to take us through the foreign policy or Azerbaijan's journey through the diplomatic realm.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this question. Yes, Azerbaijan regained independence in 1991 on 18th of October. You precisely mentioned that regained independence. So we restored our independence. We were independent in 1918. The first we created in 1918 on 28th of May, we created the first parliamentary democracy in the Muslim world. It was called Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. But it existed only 2 years, 23 months. On 28th of April, the Bolsheviks or communists, they invaded the country, and we became a part of the Soviet Union, which was forming at that time, in 1920. So that's why in 1991 we regained our independence, but our journey for independence was thorny. We must mention that from the late of 1980s, precisely from 1987, our neighbor Armenia, even being within the Soviet Union, put forward a illegal and what was unjust territorial claims to our country. And at the time, the leadership of the Soviet Union was not acting adequately. That was seen by our people also. And our people started movement for independence. Already in 1990, just 1 year before the collapse of the Soviet Union, more than 1 year, from the night from 19th to 20th January, Soviet troops invaded Baku. 150 people left killed. The purpose of this was to suppress the independent movement in Azerbaijan. It was the largest mass killings, massacres of civilians in the Soviet Union, it became also a turning point in our mentality that we cannot live together. We will be independent in order to protect our rights, in order to protect our country. And on October 18th, 1991, we adopted an act of restoration of our state independence. Since the independence, very first months of independence, and before that also, within the Soviet Union, we faced already military aggression from Armenia. And it was, they had territorial claims to us. They wanted our territory, the Karabakh region, to become a part of Armenia. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, we became members of the United Nations with these borders, which you have seen. This is our international borders. In the beginning, we didn't have a strong army. We didn't have economy. We were facing economy problems, social issues, political turmoil. And it resulted in occupation of 20% of our territories in the beginning of 1990s, together with the ethnic cleansings against our population in these territories. Thankfully, we had this leader, Haidar Aliyev, with a deep knowledge, with deep experience and vision, who led Azerbaijan in the 70s and turned Azerbaijan, within the Soviet Union, from agrarian into industrial country. In 1993, people invited him to Baku. He was in Nakhchivan area, Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. He was a leader of Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic at that time. He was the leader, one of the leaders of the Soviet Union. He was a member of a political bureau. And he was what we say now, deputy prime minister of the Soviet Union at the time. But in 1987, he was dismissed from his post unjustly. Right after his dismissal, Armenians raised the territorial claims to us. So he was on the top of this leadership of the Soviet Union, and this plan against our country was prepared beforehand. And of course, with his charisma, with his knowledge, he would not be allowing that. On 21st of January 1990, he was in Moscow, and he came to our permanent representation. At the time, each republic had a sort of mission in Moscow. And he came to our permanent representation and harshly condemned the acts of the Soviet Union. He was the leader of our nation at that time also. In 1993, he was elected president of the republic. And from 1993, we have what I will say positive countdown. From outskirts of the world, in terms of development, we reach the level now upper middle income country.
From the position that you just mentioned that Azerbaijan is currently at, I wonder what the shaping factors are in terms of its relations with former Soviet Republic as well as other nations of the world. Now, we'll go specifically to Ethiopia, but kind of give us a brief highlight of what the general theme you would say is of the foreign relations of the country.
Even being a part of the Soviet Union, we had the connections with Ethiopia. We had a delegation visiting, very large delegation visiting Ethiopia and meeting with your then emperor. From 1960s, the Soviet Union started providing scholarships for foreign students, including Africa and including Ethiopia. We hosted around 8,000 African students in our country only, in Baku and other cities, who were receiving education. Out of these 8,000, around 800 were Ethiopians, 800. And now we still keep in touch with them. After we regained independence in since 2000s, we restarted our scholarships, including those for Ethiopians, and a few Ethiopian students already studying in Azerbaijan and receiving education. Coming to relations with our regional countries, it's a very, very broad issue, you know. We cannot cover it in a few minutes, of course. But among our 6 neighbors, we have very good relations with our neighbors, except Armenia, with whom we had a conflict. We have good relations with Iran, we have good relations with Russia, with Turkey, we're allies. We have very good relations with Central Asian republics, which are also very ethnically, religiously, linguistically, and culturally very close to us. That is just in general. We have also a good partnership with the European Union, strategic partnership with the United States. We're members of, and now we're chair of non-aligned movement. Currently, we're members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC.
So we'll go back to Azerbaijan being the chair of the non-aligned movement. But speaking of details now, I want you to go into the details of the relations that Azerbaijan and Ethiopia share, specifically modern-day relations, partnerships, and cooperations that these 2 countries are currently enjoying.
This last year, we celebrated 30 years of establishment of our diplomatic relations on 2nd of November. We have the exchange of congratulatory letters between the ministers of foreign affairs. During the 30 years since we regained independence, so our relations have been developing dynamically, and in 2014 we opened embassy here, mission. Of course, having a mission director already in Addis Ababa will boosted our relations, and we have big plans, let's say. Just COVID pandemic interfered with our plans, but now we're already restarting it. We in terms of trade and investment, we have a great potential. In terms of humanitarian affairs, also we have a great potential. We share the same principles with Ethiopia on international arena. It's and within a non-aligned movement, such as very important respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of the states, non-interference with domestic affairs, mutually beneficial cooperation, etc.
Now let's go back, like I said, to the non-aligned movement. As you said, Ethiopia also enjoys membership in that. But one of the things that stood out to me when looking into the foreign policy of Azerbaijan is its priority to refrain from joining military alliances and maintaining de facto neutrality in the region. And it became a full-fledged member of the non-aligned movement in 2011. Let's go over that, its journey as a member of the non-aligned movement and how it has shaped its relationship with different countries, including Ethiopia.
In international relations, we adhere to the norms and principles of international law. And there also in the fundament of non-aligned movement, which actually celebrated 60 years recently. When we assumed the chairmanship of non-aligned movement, it coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic. It was in 2019, end of 2019, and in 2020, COVID-19 pandemic covered up the world. So within the, considering that, as a chair of non-aligned movement, our president, His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, initiated the first ever the virtual summit of non-aligned movement contact group on COVID-19 pandemic. It was on 4th May. Then it had a very good outcome, and there was a database created of the members of the non-aligned movement, which actually helped to identify the needs in first of all in vaccines for the countries of non-aligned movement, including African countries, Ethiopia. And this database helped a lot also WHO. Now, in March, on 2nd of March, we're going to host a post-pandemic recovery summit-level meeting in Baku. This also will help to identify needs of the countries of non-aligned movement members, their needs in post-pandemic recovery and development. Within the non-aligned movement, we are active, and it is recognized by all the members of the non-aligned movement. So they, with their support, our chairmanship was extended for another 1 year through this year also. And we also, with the non-aligned movement, we initiated new formats. And for example, we hosted a youth summit of non-aligned movement. Now the youth, non-aligned movement youth organization was established, NAMYO, if we say like this. And we also initiated a parliamentary cooperation with the non-aligned movement. Non-alignment movement parliamentary network also was established in June. We hosted a summit of heads of parliaments of non-aligned movement in the end of June, beginning of July, and this NAMPN, yes, it was a parliamentary network was established also. So you see that we contribute to development of this organization, of this movement, and we do our best to for the NAM members' voices to be heard.
Now, it has been almost 2 years since the November 2020 ceasefire deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan was reached. But before I say more on that, actually, I want you to address the conflict first and, what that has been like for Azerbaijan and just a general picture of the conflict in that area.
For 28 years, we had been adhering to the peace talks based on international principles of norms and international law. We wanted to resolve everything peacefully. However, we have not seen this from counterpart, which actually used and wanted to use this time just to strengthen the occupation and to legalize it. At the same time, accepting a new more and more aggressive doctrines and taking more aggressive steps towards our country, not even willing to withdraw its armed forces from our territories, but also announcing new wars for new territories at the state level. Openly saying that these territories belong to them and that's it. And staging another provocations. And as a response to another this kind of provocation, which was on September 27th, 2020, our country, our commander-in-chief and the president, Ilham Aliyev, announced a counteroffensive. Counteroffensive along the whole line of contact, which started our patriotic war for liberation of our territories and restoration of territorial integrity of our state. That war lasted 44 days and ended on 8th November 2020, when the main city and the crown of Karabakh region of our country, Shusha, was liberated from Armenian armed forces. On 10th of November 2020, a trilateral statement was signed by the leaders of the Russian Federation, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, putting an end to the conflict. Sometimes some forces and circles want to present this statement as just a ceasefire statement. If you see some their statements and everything made after that and comments, but it is not a ceasefire statement only. It contains nine articles, and it is putting an end to a military conflict itself. First of all, three our regions, according to the statement, were liberated. The Armenian armed forces were withdrawn from them as a result of our victory, without fight. We restored our territorial integrity as a result of this. And nowadays, it is important to implement fully this trilateral statement, because some provisions are not yet implemented by counterpart, by Armenia. It's first of all, it is a complete withdrawal of Armenian armed forces from our territories, which still remain in the territory, which is in the area of temporary deployment of peacekeeping contingent of the Russian Federation. And so far, we have not we don't see condemnation of this non-fulfillment of commitment by Armenia, by international community. We also do not see the calls and urges of international community to implement fully this statement by Armenia. Another also issue of a serious concern is that landmines which are left in this territory. Now, because of by contamination by landmines, in terms of contamination by landmines, we stand in top 3 of the countries because of this area. Trilateral statement was signed in 2020 November. Since then, we had 276 victims of landmines in our territory. And also in the territory, we found the mines produced in Armenia in 2021, which is actually a direct violation of this trilateral statement and cessation of all hostilities against us. It means you have not yet put an end to all hostilities against us. You have not ended with the territorial crimes against our state. That is the situation now. And it is important for the peace in the region for this trilateral statement to be fully implemented.
So speaking about this conflict, actually, it's not just Armenia and Azerbaijan. A lot of regional powers have also keen interest in this and a lot of involvement as well. So what has that meant for the foreign relations of Azerbaijan beyond Armenia?
Well, let's see. In the beginning of 1990s, when our territories fall under Armenian occupation, and we had so many refugees and internally displaced persons. In 1993, the United Nations Security Council adopted 4 resolutions demanding immediate, complete, and unconditional withdrawal of all Armenian armed forces from our territories. The negotiations were going on in the framework of the Minsk Group of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Co-chairs of that group were 3 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council: the United States, France, and the Russian Federation. For more than a quarter century of negotiations, not even single centimeter of our territories were liberated at the negotiation level, diplomatically. So we resolved the issue single-handedly. We implemented these 4 resolutions on the ground. In just 44 days. And as I said, this mediation did not bring any tangible result. Now, the OAC Minsk group is dead. There is no any other issue for them. There is a peace agenda put forward in the region, put forward by our country. Delimitation, demarcation of borders, it's a bilateral issue with Armenia. We also initiated this. And we want them to be sincere in this process. Peace agreement, there have been meetings at the supreme level between the heads of states also, and at the level of foreign ministers and on other levels also. And some other actors also have been active in these peace talks with the further conclusion of a peace treaty, peace agreement. We presented 5 principles for this peace agreement to Armenia. And these all principles are in line with the norms and principles of international law. Basically, those principles. And however, we want Armenia to be sincere in this, not to protract, and to act responsibly, not to we want them to leave conflict in past, to leave territorial claims to us in the past, and open up a new page, a chapter in the region of peaceful coexistence. This is a unique chance for the region and for them also. That's what we would like them to know. They must honor their commitments first, what they signed under and what they agreed to do. This is very important.
Now, as we know, peace is a very important prospect for any country, and Ethiopia as a country has reached a peace after 2 years of conflicts can, be a witness to that. So now it leaves me wondering, what the prospect for Azerbaijan is following this conflict. What is going to change in its foreign policy, assuming that we can get past this period of conflict with Armenia and ideally go into a period of peace?
Of course, the resolution of the conflict opens up new opportunities for our country, for the region, entire region, because the conflict consumes lots of resources. Now these resources can be directed at a better stage. Also, the liberated territories now, it's around 12,000 square kilometers, more than 10,000. It's equal to the territory, for example, of the state like Lebanon. Our agenda, post-conflict agenda, conflict is ended, it's finished, is a rehabilitation and reconstruction of the liberated territories from Armenian occupation, reintegration of those territories, and along with this, we proposed to Armenia to sign a peace treaty, peace agreement. This is a rare and unique situation when a country which won on the battle and the war proposes a peace agreement to a defeated state. This is a very rare. But we did it because we follow the peace agenda in the region. We are standing on our international borders. We also propose to start a delimitation of the borders. And we want Armenia to sincerely answer this and act. Because this is the most important, this is very important for the peace in the region. That's what we want in the region.
That's a very ambitious and hopeful projection, I'd say. Now, to end it on a more personalized note, I'd say, with Ethiopia, let me ask you a projection to be made about Azerbaijan's and Ethiopia's relations going forward, stepping into the future. What is to be expected from the two countries' relations?
What we expect in the nearest future is a development of economic relations, a development of humanitarian contacts and people-to-people contacts between our countries. We have many similarities. Our countries both are independent in terms of conducting of their foreign policies. And this is really important for development of bilateral relations. And as a mission here in Addis Ababa, we do all our best to to fulfill all these tasks in bilateral agenda of ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And with that, today's diplomatic insight comes to an end. We've looked at different features of Azerbaijan's foreign policy, including the different challenges of the modern day, the past, as well as what to expect in the coming future, including in its relations with Ethiopia. I was Kirana Baina, leading you through the program, and until next time.